Hey everyone, Ben Eunson here. I hope you're having a lovely weekend wherever you may be viewing from, whether you're here in the US as I am or somewhere else in the world. Hope you're having a great weekend. Rather than playing for you today, I'd like to do a little mini lesson for you. And some of you might have tuned in last night when I tried to do this very same mini lesson but had a couple of connection problems. So if you're rejoining me today, then welcome back. And if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. So today, as I said, rather talk about something that I might talk about in a lesson, and that is arpeggios. I'd like to talk about my approach to arpeggios on the guitar and how I like to sort of mix them all up. When I say mix them all up, I guess I'm talking about positions versus two-string arpeggios, which is what I'm primarily going to be talking to you about. And if you're tuning in from somewhere around the world or the United States, let me know, drop a comment, say hi. I'll take some questions from you later on if you feel like it. Just get in the live chat and we'll take it from there. But anyway, we're going to talk about two-string arpeggios, which is the concept of taking the four notes in a seventh chord arpeggio, let's say G major 7, G major 7. So we have the notes G, B, D, and F sharp. Four notes. And some of you might have learnt the sort of position way of playing that kind of arpeggio, which works great as well. Maybe something a little like this. Which is down in the second position and sort of involves a lot of picking. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very traditional way of playing a major 7 arpeggio, and it's great to know, especially when you hear sort of older jazz guitarists from maybe the 40s even, using that sort of sweeping thing, a bit like that, which I don't do very often. But it's certainly a possibility, but the way that I like to look at it sounds a little more like this. What I'm able to do there is I'm able to go up 3 octaves with a repeated left-hand pattern here, and it enables not only more mobility on the guitar neck, but I can also make sure that my lines don't just get stuck in one position. And this is an example of what I like to call two-string arpeggios. So what I mean by that is, let's take the low E string and the A string. So low E and A. And basically, we'll take, for example, the F sharp and the G from our G major 7 arpeggio, and also the B and the D. And it's going to work very nicely because that means that we're playing 2 notes over 2 strings. That's a total of 4 notes. That's the name two-string arpeggios. And we can follow it up several octaves on the guitar neck, which enables us to get around a lot easier, and I like to do that. One of the beauties of it as well is that you can start from any note in that arpeggio. For example, you can start from the root note G. We just started from F sharp a minute ago, the 7th degree. Start from the root note G. And you get a bit more stretching there with the left hand, but it sort of, enables us to get around the neck a bit easier, regardless of the stretch. And I think that stretching in that way is great anyway for the, sort of knowledge and ease of getting around the guitar neck. We could also start from the 3rd degree B, or the 5th degree D. So let's try this in real time. Let's put on a little track, and we're going to start from each note of the arpeggio. Starting from F sharp. Now starting from G. From B. and from D. Just like that. Now, if you want to get into more of this kind of stuff, I am having a sale at beneunson.com this weekend, which is kind of a long weekend here in the US. You can get 25% off all my online courses, and you can get an additional 5% off, so it's 30% off, with the code NOV20. So November, we're still in November. So you can get that at beneunson.com, and there's a link in the description below that you can follow through. And there's also a tip jar if you feel so inclined. And you can certainly check out all of this arpeggio type of stuff, including a lot of position-based playing in my online course, How to Practice Volume 2, which focuses only on arpeggios. And I also talk about it a lot in How to Practice Volume 3 as well. So what more can we do with two-string arpeggio? Some of you might have already seen me talking about the G major 7 arpeggio online in another video on my channel here. But what we can do with this is we can apply this principle to any 7th chord arpeggio, which I really like. So for example, we could take a G diminished major 7 arpeggio, G, B flat, D flat, F sharp, and we could play that in the same manner, going from the low E string, F sharp, G, B flat, D, F sharp, G, B flat, D flat. I meant to say D flat. There you go. So let's try that in real time, starting from each degree in the arpeggio. Starting from F sharp. Okay, from the root note G, from B flat, final one from D flat. So for me, that really is the backbone of my playing, these kinds of arpeggios, because it enables me to get from one part of the neck up higher with minimal difficulty. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, do you need to be able to have huge hands to play this kind of material? And I would say no. I've just probably tricked you into thinking that I have huge hands because I do these stretches, but it's really just the product of, I guess, years of doing these kinds of stretches. And it wasn't easy at first. I started off very slowly. In fact, probably at about half the speed that I just played this material for you at. So there's no trouble with that. I think it's always, anything is possible as long as you're willing to stretch your fingers a little bit without putting yourself in pain. That's the point at which you need to take a break. But anyway, where can we take this beyond just arpeggios over sort of set harmony, like for example a G major 7 arpeggio over a G major 7 chord? Well, if we were to then take what we just played, a G diminished major 7 arpeggio, you know, or G minor major 7 flat 5 as I often like to call it. It just seems to make more sense to me that way, but same thing. We could reapply this harmonically over, for example, an A13 flat 9. A bit of a classic chord for you there. Which we could certainly use as a 5 chord, leading into a 1 chord. But before we get to that point, we can work out that, for example, on an A13 flat 9, we'd probably usually play an A half whole diminished scale. So from that scale, we can derive a G diminished major 7 arpeggio. There it goes. So, and feel free to jump in the comments if you have any questions as well, because I'd love to hear your take on all of this, or even if you just want to say where you're tuning in from today. So, what we're going to do is we're going to play that arpeggio over an A13 flat 9, because with that arpeggio we have G, that's a flat 7 over A, B flat, so flat 9 over A, D flat or C sharp, depending on how you want to look at it, it's a natural 3 over A, and then F sharp, natural 13 over A. So let's try that in real time. Over A13 flat 9. There we go. Now starting from G. Very good. Now starting from B flat. Starting from D flat. There we go. Or starting from C sharp, depending on how you want to look at it, of course. But there we go. That's a way to get through 2-string arpeggios and go from the basic stage of working out what do I mean by this kind of a fingering approach with the left hand, to actually working out how to apply the arpeggio to a chord, getting closer and closer to actually soloing. Because my feeling on this sort of learning is it's got to have a purpose. You know, you've got to, it's all well and good to know arpeggios, but there has to be some sort of element of practical application, because at the end of the day, we're here to play music, right? You know, my favorite thing to do is to play music. When I actually end up playing on a show or on a record or whatever I might get to do, I'm not thinking much about these arpeggios. I need to know them so well from doing exercises that incrementally increase in difficulty like this, that I no longer have to think about them. So that's really what I'm talking about. Working out how to really make music. And I think that's what we're all here for, right? So anyway, that's one thing you can do. And another thing that I like to do, I see some of you have dropped in some questions, which is great. I'll certainly get to that in just one moment, is I love to get to know these types of arpeggios better by taking, for example, the sort of major 7th variation of these arpeggios and going from low to high over 3 octaves. For example, it's F major 7 as a 2-string arpeggio over 3 octaves, and then thinking, okay, well, what happens if I go up a 4th from there? Okay, so B flat comes after F, so there we go. I made a connection using that E connecting to F, which then becomes the 5th of B flat, and made my way down 3 octaves. Now if I want to keep going in 4ths, I could connect from A, the 7th of B flat, major 7, down to a G, thinking of that as the 3rd of E flat major 7, and so forth. Now to A flat, then to D flat, and G flat. We'll have to go a bit of a different direction because I'm running out of fretboard down the low end. And then from G flat, we can think of that enharmonically as an F sharp, the 5th degree of B. And then connect up to E, A, D major, G, C, back to F. So there we go. That's something that I like to do. Trying to make my way through the changes going through 4ths using only major 7th arpeggios with the two-string arpeggio principle, which is discussed in my How to Practice 2 ebook. So yeah, guys, let's do some questions now. I see a number of you are online, and I'm so glad that you joined me today. Before we go any further, also make sure there is a sale at beneunson.com if you like, 25% off everything this whole weekend, and you can get an extra 5% off with the code NOV20. And it's in the description down below. And there's also a tip jar if you feel like it. So let's get stuck into some questions. Hey everyone, great to see you. So which arpeggio? So the arpeggios that I was using, just to clarify, I started off with a G major 7, just a regular old G major 7, G, B, D, F sharp, and the next one I used was a G diminished major 7, or a G minor major 7 flat 5, as I personally like to call it, just because that's sort of how I taught it to myself many years ago, but maybe no one else says that. G diminished major 7 is the generally most accepted way of classifying the chord. G, B flat, D flat, F sharp. And the concept that I was showing you was, of course, over an A13 flat 9, you can really highlight some nice, nice tones over that chord by applying a G diminished major 7 chord over an A13 flat 9. So that's what the arpeggios were. The idea, of course, was to get closer to actually playing a concept that you might use while soloing. So that's what I want us to get to. Not just playing arpeggios for the sake of playing arpeggios, but really playing music. I think that's the most important thing. So, yeah. What kind of amp plugin do you use? I'm just running through a Line 6 Helix for these live videos just to make my life a little simpler, and I hope it's coming through great on your end because it sounds great on this end. And I've just got some settings dialed in to give you a nice clean sound. So I hope it's coming through clearly for you. Let's see. String skipped arpeggios. Absolutely. Well, the way that I like to do these sort of string skipping arpeggios, personally, I mean, the best place to start, and again, I talk about this more in How to Practice Volume 2, is with triads. One of the best things you can do to skip strings is start with triads. And I love to do this thing where I'm sort of going, let's say we have a G major triad. Here we go. And I love to go sort of like skipping from the 5th degree to the 1st degree. So let me show you what I mean by that. For example, let's start on the 3rd degree B of G major. Notice how I sort of skipped the A string entirely. That's where I love to start. So let me play that a little slower for you. So B, D, G, over on the D string. I could have played the G at the 10th fret on the A string, but I'm trying to pick as few notes as possible. And also, we can even continue in another sort of position and register. B, D, G, B. This time I skipped the G string completely. So that's where I would begin with string skipping. And I think that's a lot of fun. For me personally, I'll give you a bit of background. A lot of people ask me why I sort of don't pick every note. And I've traced the original reason back to listening to probably Denny Diaz on Steely Dan recordings from when I was very young. He was probably for a period my absolute favorite guitarist, and still is one of my absolute favorite guitarists. Your Gold Teeth 2 off Katie Lied, his solos interchanging with Walter Becker on Asia off Steely Dan. I mean, there are more. I'm just forgetting them right now, but I shouldn't, because those solos were so important to me. And for the way that I like to pick, you can probably learn a bit about where I'm coming from with that in the initial stages, and then I sort of tried to make it my own thing. But that's why I don't pick every note originally. So there you go. let's see what else we have here. Do I imagine chord changes even when you're soloing, just in free time on your own? Yeah, I do. I mean, that's a great question, Jack. Thanks for that. I sort of just hear sounds now. I'm very fortunate to have, I guess, it's known as perfect pitch, but you don't need perfect pitch. It's just something that I sort of, when I was very young and started sort of piano lessons, when I was about 4, I was very reluctant to read music, so I learned everything by ear to trick my music teacher, which is pretty funny, but it came back to bite me when I was a teenager and I didn't know how to read music, so that's a whole other story. Anyway, I sort of just hear tonal centers, yeah, and I hear sort of colors, I guess, in one sense, but I can identify it immediately in my head. So you don't necessarily need to be able to do that. Plenty of brilliant musical minds who don't have perfect or absolute pitch, but I just, it's the only thing I know because I have it, so there you go. Let's see, is the Strat Sonic Blue or Daphne Blue? I actually don't know. This Strat is a very interesting guitar. It's certainly seen a few owners before I picked it up, but I've had it for coming up to 6 years. I picked it up in New York, and it is a little beaten up, but that's not really, I don't really mind how it looks. It's just I like the way it sounds. And it sounded great when I got it, and then I made it even better with some Seymour Duncan Antiquity 2 pickups, and now I love it even more. It's got a lot of character. It's easier to play on some days more than others. But I think at the end of the day when I plug it in, it sounds fantastic, and sound always wins for me rather than, you know, how many scratches the guitar has, even though that does look cool, I'm not going to lie. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, how do you turn them into lines so it doesn't just sound like you're playing arpeggios? Well, that was sort of what I was getting to with connecting the arpeggios through fourths as well. In the final section of How to Practice Volume 2, I talk about how to actually connect this stuff up and turn it into lines. And How to Practice Volume 3 at beneunson.com is all about turning this stuff into lines. It's about actually taking scales and arpeggios and joining them together to create lines. So, forgive the shameless plug, but really I could explain it much better in my online courses than I could right now because we might be here for some time, which I would love to do actually, but might be better for you to check those out because I think I explain it better there. But I was getting to it by connecting the major 7th arpeggios through fourths just a little while ago. So let's do a couple more questions and then we might have to call it a day for today. But let's see what else we have here. Most of the time, do you use a complete scale or the arpeggio in the context of soloing? Well, I'd use a combination of scales and arpeggios, but certainly focusing more on arpeggios, I think. Pardon me. Are you familiar with Tosin Abasi's selective picking? Tosin Abasi is one of the most incredible guitar players on earth. I am familiar with the technique. It's not something I do, but he's amazing, man. Amazing. Let's see, what else do we have here? I have, let's see, how do I stay calm, cool, and collected? Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a very good question, thank you. You know, for me, music is the meditation. You know, I actually warming up is the most important part of my day. You know, this instrument and getting to play music for my life keeps me centered. You know, I have to be. It's I think this has been a tumultuous year for all of us around the whole world. But if you can rethink that in a way that maybe it brings us all together somehow, maybe there's a unity that we can all find in this time as people on Earth. So that's my philosophical outlook for you, to try and see the best in what has been a very difficult time for everyone, I think. But I think the guitar keeps me calm, and music, that I do my best with that. So let's see what else we have here. Hey Danny, thanks for tuning in again. As I said, I did this last night, but had a couple of connection problems. So if you're tuning in for the second time, thank you for joining me again. If you're tuning in for the first time for my mini lesson here, well, welcome. We'll probably leave it there for today. Thank you all for joining me. I hope that this little arpeggio mini lesson might have helped you a little bit. And you can certainly check out more of this kind of material in my How to Practice courses, especially How to Practice Volumes 2 and 3. Or you can get the whole bundle, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, for 30% off if you type in the code NOV20. And there's a link down below. So check it out. And there's also a tip jar below if you feel so inclined. And thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a blast to hang out with you here on YouTube. This is probably the best place to hear my music, and find me for little live stream mini lessons like this, which I'll be doing more and more of. I love sharing this with you from all around the world, from here in the United States. And it's just great. So I love it. So with a bit of luck, I'll see you next time. And thanks for joining me. And keep practicing, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.